So we are recording. So hello, David. Welcome to Business 5.0.
Hi, Lyndon. Good to be here.
David Kurten is the leader of the Heritage Party, which I believe was set up in January. Is that right, David?
Last May was when I started working on it, but we got our approval from the Electoral Commission in October and opened for membership then. So it's been sort of a fully fledged party just for 3 months.
Yeah. Tell us a bit about the party. What's the aim and the mission? And
well, I think, I've been in the London Assembly as a member there for nearly 5 years now. And, I was in UKIP back in the day because I wanted Brexit, but, I left UKIP. And we need a properly conservative party in this country, because I'm looking at the Conservative Party and, they say they are conservative, but they're in name only. And everything they say, they get into power, they pretend that they're going to do things that are popular, that the people want, and they get into power and they just do the opposite, and they don't do things that are conservative. So we really need a truly conservative party that is financially responsible, that's proud of our nation, and also that's socially conservative as well, and doesn't sort of push us down the road of having all these hate speech rules and destroying our culture and our family basis of society, which is what's been happening with all the different parties over the last 50 years. Well, 25 years, I would say.
Yeah.
So that's why I set up the Heritage Party, to be a properly socially conservative party.
Yeah, and that all makes sense, because I've never got involved in politics. I just turned 50, as we were just discussing, hence Business 5.0. Did you get that? Did you get the 5.0 bit?
Yeah. Me too. I'm about that time as well.
That's it, yeah. And we've got a great Telegram group going as well called Business 5.0. So that's getting some good momentum and traction. So in terms of, I never got involved with politics until this sort of COVID era. And then I just couldn't help myself, because I'm probably like yourself, David, I like to fight for the people. So it's the few that fight for the many.
Yeah, look, right. And there's so many people that are coming to the Heritage Party and just generally around that I meet who've never got involved in politics before, never thought it, too important. But really, it's so important now. And people are thinking, what on earth is going on? You've got these people in the House of Parliament who are taking away our civil liberties, destroying our nation, destroying our economy, and they want to do something but don't really know what to do. So there's, I think, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people who are for the first time thinking of actually getting actively involved in politics. And we need that, because if we don't, then the same thing is just going to keep on happening, and it's going to continue to get worse and worse. So it's fantastic that you're getting involved, and it's fantastic that thousands and thousands and maybe millions of other people are thinking of getting involved too.
Yeah. So people can actually sign up to the Heritage Party from the website, am I right?
Yeah, you can. So it's heritageparty.org, and you can become a member there. It's £25 annual membership, and then when you are, you can apply to become a candidate as well. And it's great. I say to people, please do join, because the more people that join, the more candidates we can get, the more support we can get for our candidates, and the bigger challenge we can make to the one party system, which is driving our country to ruin.
Yeah, I agree. And because you've got the Labour Party and the current Conservatives, and they seem to be, whilst they knock each other, they're actually on the same page in terms of lockdowns and so on and so forth. And I, for one, feel it's all unjustified, overreaching, and just fundamentally wrong for society.
Absolutely. I mean, it's disproportionate, I would say, and unnecessary. And you've got the different colours of parties, but the way I see it now is you've really got a one-party state with different arms which are different colours, because you can see the fake Conservatives and Labour. I mean, they're basically working in lockstep together. I mean, they agree with each other on this. So they agree with each other on all the woke culture as well. And there's really not much difference between them. They're sort of Blairite, progressive, and destructive at the same time. So we need an alternative, and the Heritage Party is not part of that, uni-party system.
Yeah, no, I agree. So what does it take for a party to have a degree of power? Is it the volume of members? Is it something? What is it?
Well, we've got to get people winning in elections, and that's notoriously difficult to do in this country because we have the first past the post system everywhere. And yeah, I was in UKIP back in the day. I stood in the 2015 election where it was very different to what it is now, and it won 12.5% of the vote. 4 million people voted for UKIP in 2015, nearly broke the two-party system, but only got one MP. If it was a proportional system we had in this country, like some other countries, UKIP would have got 80 to 90 seats at that time and would have actually broken the system and actually gone on to higher and better things, but it didn't, and then it all fell apart. But we got to have the aim to win in the first past the post system. I mean, people say to me, oh, you can't do it, you should just, try to make a pressure group and try to get in on the inside, join the Conservative Party or the Labour Party and make a difference. But people have tried that and they just get sidelined and silenced, basically. So that isn't the way. I think really now is an amazing opportunity to do that coming up to the next election. I don't know when the next election will be, probably, scheduled for 3 years' time in 2024. I don't know if we'll have a country left at that time if we continue with the parties we got, but we got to have that aim, and that is my aim, to build the party up over the next 3 years so it will be a challenger and it can win on the first past the post system. If you don't have that vision, you're not going to achieve it.
Right.
So that's my vision. It's a very high aim, but that's my aim. You've got to go for it.
Yeah. Well, I think just making plenty of noise around the right sort of topics and subject, and I think given the COVID period, it's certainly exposed the lies, the untruths, the propaganda, not just from political parties, but from the mainstream media. That seem to be in the party's pockets, shall I say, because where are the investigative journalists? Because I've done all the research, I can see where things have gone wrong and numbers have gone wrong and why they're fabricated. Where are these people? Why are they not doing proper reporting anymore?
Yeah, the mainstream media exactly is working in lockstep with the fake Conservative and the Labour Party. They're all in it together. And what I say about them is they're not news outlets. They're narrative outlets. They're spinning narratives. They're propaganda outlets. I think Goebbels will be proud of some of the stuff that they're doing now, to be honest. Like you say, they're not asking blindingly obvious questions that you can see the answer to if you look into it. How come you're still using PCR tests when they give a huge rate of false positives? Why are you conflating cases with positive tests when actually cases are when people have actual symptoms of COVID? Why has flu almost, all but disappeared? Where's it gone? They're not even asking these questions at all. What about hydroxychloroquine? What about ivermectin and other very, very cheap and effective remedies for people who get the symptoms of COVID-19, and many, many more questions? They're not even touching these questions, let alone, probing and searching for real answers.
Yeah. You see the hashtag plandemic and these kind of things. And with all the research I've done, and honestly, I have done thousands of hours. I've spoken to scientists. I've read The Great Reset, the Fourth Industrial Revolution. You sort of do these things, and the reason why you arrive at a plandemic is because I've been able to predict over the last 10 months exactly what's going to happen in months to come, including the big January lockdown I predicted 8 months ago. People laughed at me. I said 9 months ago, this will go on until June 2021. People laughed at me. I got abuse for it. And look where we are. And it's not because I'm Nostradamus, it's written down. You've just got to have a bit of a mindset to put the dates together. Davos, the second half of Davos, which actually first half started today, is in June. That's the more private Davos, which is why this will go on till June. I knew this months ago. Do you see what I mean? So you can't help but arrive at a plandemic. The hydroxychloroquine, I can't even say the word, hydroxychloroquine.
Chloroquine.
That one. in week two. So end of the first week of April, I came across an article how this was working in Japan and it should work for COVID. I shared it with my family in a WhatsApp group. We've got a family WhatsApp group. I tried to buy it week 3 of COVID, couldn't buy it anywhere. Now, why is that? That's normally over-the-counter stuff. Why couldn't I buy it anywhere on the 3rd week of COVID? Why couldn't I buy it?
That's sinister, really, isn't it?
It's all, but that's the point. I think it's all sinister. So I like what the Heritage Party stands for in terms of what you're trying to achieve and direction it's going, and the fact that you need members. What do you think the effect is on businesses is going to be?
Yeah, I mean, it's appalling for businesses. I mean, one of the things we talk about is liberty and free speech. We're big on that, but also, the effect it's having, particularly on small and medium-sized businesses, is appalling. But this is all part of the Great Reset and the plan, if you like. Yeah. I mean, the World Economic Forum represents the biggest of big global corporations, and there's nothing wrong with big business per se, but if they're acting in a way which is malevolent and uncompetitive to small businesses, and stopping them and blocking them through the systems and the power bases that they have, which is what they're doing, then it's absolutely wrong. So we've seen pubs shut, restaurants shut, bars, nightclubs, all the arts, theaters and music venues, have been decimated, and small shops, hairdressers and other, cafes and so on, have been absolutely hammered by this. And it's so bad, and it's so unnecessary, completely unnecessary. You don't need to shut down all the businesses. But the lockdowns clearly don't work, because you've got countries like Sweden who have kept everything open, and the trajectory of the epidemic has been pretty much the same in the UK and Sweden, not much different. So you can see 2 different approaches, but it hasn't made any difference whatsoever. So rather than continuing to rely on Professor Ferguson's dodgy modeling, which is what we got at the beginning in March, that's now proven to be wrong. We need to open things up, because we've got hundreds of thousands of businesses have gone bankrupt, and they're not going to come back. But every day that we carry on, more businesses go under, and it's criminal, absolutely criminal, and there's no need for it.
It is criminal, and I'm a huge business advocate, and I help so many businesses, hence the Telegram group, to help them get through and navigate through this period, and if need be, pivot the business so that they can target maybe a new kind of audience in a new kind of way, and I get, I feel good for doing that, it's giving back and the rest of it. But when you look, and I see that, I read the stories, I hear the stories, my business, 30 years, blood, sweat, tears. I've got 2 weeks worth of money left. I've got 6 weeks worth of money left. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to top myself. I have stopped 8 people committing suicide. Through speaking with them, having a proper life conversation with them, and stop them. And they were on the proper brink. And that breaks my heart, David. Do you know what I mean? Because you look at the lies, the propaganda, the ignorance of the government and that stream of politicians, and then you look at this side of it and you think it's just unnecessary.
Completely. It's appalling, isn't it? There's a real life stories and real life effects on real people. They don't get mentioned at all in the media. They do. I questioned Sadiq Khan, for example. That's my job, so I did ask him about this last Thursday, and we had a bit of a fiery exchange, but he wouldn't give a straight answer. But then, instead of giving an answer, he deflected and diverted to, well, what about all of the people in hospital who are dying and all their families who are suffering? And yes, there are, of course, when people get ill in hospital, it's tragic for their families, but the overall mortality rate is no higher than normal. But they're not talking about the other people who are affected by this as a direct result of lockdown. The people you just mentioned who are thinking of committing suicide because their businesses are going under, or they can't pay their mortgages, or they can't see their friends, and people who aren't getting cancer treatment, so they're dying because they can't get the treatment in hospital they would normally get. This is not mentioned whatsoever. They're almost completely ignored. as voiceless victims of not of COVID, but of the government's action of in response to this virus, the SARS-CoV.
There's so many, and I think, and it's the saying of the cure can't be any worse than the cause, kind of thing, or the disease. And the problem is, it is. I've known plenty of people, as I'm sure lots of people do. I know plenty of people that work in hospitals, from doctors to nurses, and to coders who code the results. It's just dodgy as hell. You know, it's, and I've termed the phrase, it's the atomic bomb strategy. You know, with 130,000 people building the atomic bomb in 6 or 7 different countries, but they didn't know they were building the atomic bomb. Until right at the end. So what you've got is the process of from diagnosis through to being in as a patient, to being coded on the system, to being released, and different people dealing with it, not really understanding the consequence of where that data is going and how that is impacting the big scary number that isn't real. And all using a PCR test that is not designed to diagnose COVID. Simple.
I mean,
at 45 cycles.
Right, exactly. And even the World Health Organization has now come out and said that it shouldn't be over 35 cycles. I mean, that's new advice just as President Biden got took office. I mean, less said about that the better, but I mean, they've changed their advice now. But this has been known since the beginning. If you know anything about science, you know anything
completely.
Test. I mean, even the inventor of the test said he shouldn't be used to ascertain the presence of a virus, and yet they're doing it, and conflating cases with positive tests. Absolutely wrong. I mean, the only thing you can do really is, or you should be doing, is looking at the symptoms. And there are people who are getting these very, very severe symptoms. I mean, I question whether there's another reason for this. There does seem to be some correlation between people who have had flu vaccines, the new flu vaccines, which are now made in dog cells, and people who are getting the severe COVIDs, where you're getting the autoimmune response and the cytokine storm. So there is a correlation there. I've looked into it, but again, that's another question that is a complete no-no for the media. Not even going to talk about that. If you mention that, then they come down straight away with their smears: conspiracy theorist, anti-vaxxer, misinformation, disinformation. This is they just throw out these words, just as a kind of knee jerk, because they're not interested in engaging in any scientific debate or actually looking at these, which are valid questions. They just want to spin a false narrative. It's well,
that's it. You can't blame people then, David, can you, arriving at the Great Reset, because there's some people that say it's not the Great Reset. Countries can't even, coordinate one single thing together, never mind implement a global reset. But the truth is, this is unprecedented in terms of our life. And I believe it is about the Great Reset, because all of the signals there, the fact that the government don't listen to experts, and I'm talking hundreds of scientists globally. They're not looking at the reports. They're not reading the expert reports that lockdowns kill. They're not listening to cancelled operations of children now having more cancer, and cancer will be the real pandemic in a year or two's time. They're not listening to any of that, and they still carry on locking down and doing what they do. And to me, that just, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's genocide, isn't it?
Well, yeah, you could call it that, on the sort of definition that we have of genocide. And I think that there are different kinds of people involved in this. I mean, there are people who know exactly what's going on. There are people who are driving this and who do want a great reset, and who stand to gain a lot of money and a lot of power out of this, because there'll be a massive transfer of wealth from the middle classes to the giant global corporations and the people involved in the World Economic Forum. And there'll be a massive transfer of power. I mean, there's already been huge transfer of power from the people to the government. But, the MPs have basically just given the government, the executive in the UK, all of the power. They don't have any power anymore to stop any of these dozens and dozens of statutory instruments that they're bringing out over and over again to bring in greater restrictions. They've given that away, and so we get clobbered as people, and our civil liberties are getting clobbered as well. But there are useful idiots as well who have been convinced that they're doing the right thing. Who actually, there are people who genuinely believe that this is something like the Black Death, and if they don't lock us down, then they're actually killing people. But they've just got to take a cursory look at the statistics to see, and they must realize that they're wrong. I mean, you know, total mortality is no higher than normal. You know, so they're hyperinflating the figures for COVID, but then the symptoms of COVID that they're using are so general. It could be the flu or it could be something else. And then again, as we talked about, they're hyperinflating the PCR tests with cases. So, you know, if you've got any scientific and mathematical background at all, you'll see straight through this. But the trouble is, I think a lot of politicians are so bad in their knowledge of maths and science, they can't see it, you know, which is why with my background in chemistry, I can see it straight away, and you're highly numerate as well, so you can see it.
Yeah, it is awful, isn't it? And of course, what you have is a nation of people that they want someone to lead. That's why people are in businesses or leaders of parties and so on, you know. And it's why I said earlier on, it's the few that have to help and support and to a degree save the many. No matter what criticism you get from the many, you're doing the right thing, and they'll recognize that as and when, if things come good, you know. So there has to be a degree of leadership in the fight, and it's what you're doing with the Heritage Party. You're fighting for what you believe is right for the people, and from what I've seen on the website, it's absolutely spot on. And that journey has to continue, because somebody has to, because I believe we're entering the reset, and I believe we're entering communism, and it'll just creep up on us. It's already creeping up on us.
It already is, but it's deceptive, because they're doing it through a crisis. There's this fabricated crisis which is about health. And of course, all the fear propaganda that goes with that. Support this or people are going to die. Basically, that's the narrative. You can pull it apart, you know, very, very easily. And, you know, as a senior, you question anyone about it, and they don't have a good answer. They just revert to smears and emotion. I mean, which is you know, typical tactics of people who haven't got an answer. But yeah, we need action, you know, and what I'm doing is in what I know. I mean, I'm in the political sphere. I'm a London Assembly member, so what I can do is to start a new party, to try to create an alternative that people will have an alternative to vote for if they want freedom and they don't want communism and they don't want a police state. You can join the Heritage Party, you can vote for the Heritage Party. And so this is what I'm doing. And I know there are lots of other people who are involved in law, who are bringing legal cases, and this is so important as well, you know, to challenge individual head teachers who are forcing kids to wear masks, challenge businesses who are discriminating against disabled people by forcing the, you know, denying them entry into their shops and so on, and bringing action and judicial reviews against the government. But that's something that I can't get involved in personally, because I'm not an expert in law, but, you know, all power to the people who are. But in the short term, we need activism as well on the street. So, you know, I was really happy to join the big rallies in the autumn in Trafalgar Square and speak at one of them. And it was utterly appalling to see the behavior of the police coming in with a squad of riot police, batons drawn, to fight and attack the crowd, which was entirely peaceful, and there would have been no trouble whatsoever unless the police had started the trouble. And we're now in a situation where, you know, I've always supported the police all my life. You know, I've always seen the police as a force for good, who protects the people and tries to keep us safe, and who try to catch criminals. But my opinion of the police has changed, because they've become a menace in many situations. I mean, there are still some good ones who want to just go out and catch criminals, but there are some who are just like bots following orders. And if we can learn anything from history, you'll understand we should know just following orders, just doing my job when they're asking you to do something that is repugnant is not an excuse.
No.
So these people, the police officers individually who are engaging in attacking, violently attacking and brutalizing peaceful people, just engaging in their right to protest, they have no excuse, and they need to know that they have no excuse.
No, and the one thing that they should be reminded of, and I've got a lot of respect for the police, but not when it comes to this COVID and the way some police officers are executing their powers or perceived powers, is they have families too, and they need to remember they might not always be a police officer, especially when the drones come out, because they won't need as many. They have families too that will have to follow the rule and follow what I see as communism and tyranny, and they'll have to follow it as well. So it's about their lives, their children's lives. They need to know what is right, what's the right thing to do, rather than just following an instruction. And that's my guidance, advice to any police officer listening.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a police constable is supposed to be an autonomous person who makes their own decisions. I mean, under the Pelian principles and under the oath of office that a police officer will take, that's what they're supposed to be. So they are supposedly citizens in uniform, and they have to make the decision whether to make an arrest or not to make an arrest, to give a fine or not to give a fine. But I think that the police training colleges have got a lot to answer for now, because they've changed quite significantly in the kind of training that they give to police officers. So they're no longer taught to uphold our fundamental freedoms and human rights as such, but they're sort of taught to be basically unthinking, unquestioning automatons, essentially.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. What do you think about what's your view on the good old censorship or cancellation culture? Like I said, I'm actually a little bit disappointed I've not been banned off Twitter yet, so I feel a bit left out. But because some of the things I've posted, probably given the way they've treated, other people, I'm surprised I've not been. But that's not a hint for Twitter. I quite enjoy, getting out to the audience. But what do you think about that?
Yeah, well, it's been growing for 10 years. I mean, this is something I've been talking about for a very long time, the whole cultural Marxism issue and people wanting to censor people with ever stricter laws on hate speech and hate crime and so on. And no, it's gone beyond just kicking people off social media. I mean, now it's gone into things that, really affect people's lives, into people losing their jobs and even people being closed out of the financial system. People are now having their bank account shut in certain circumstances if they express an opinion which is deemed to be politically incorrect. So it's gone far beyond social media. But I've been given a couple of bans by Facebook because I tweeted something politically incorrect about transgenderism and so on. But I haven't had too much of a ban. I mean, maybe it's because I'm still on the London Assembly. I'm an elected representative, but I do find it odd. And some people come to me and they say, I tweeted your post and I got a ban, but I didn't get banned myself. So I'm sorry to all those people who have got bans because they've shared my posts, but it does seem to be happening like that. So that's very bizarre. But it's no joke anymore, because it started with people that are considered deplorable, and then it's conservatives, and then it's liberals, and then it's the president of the United States. So this is, if they can do what they did to Donald Trump, they can do it to anybody, basically.
Oh, completely. And even though they had the protection, not many people may know this, but the other protection, I think, is Article 230, which I know Donald Trump level hated. He was trying to remove, and Article 230 protects the big techs, Facebook, Twitter, and so on, from being sued from the likes of you and me. So if we read a post on Twitter that we felt offended by, we would sue Twitter. Now, Article 230 protects them against that. So
Yeah.
there was no reason or rationale to ban the President of the United States or anybody else for that matter. No reason whatsoever. So when you look at it all and put the pieces together, from PCRs to what I describe as atomic bomb strategy, to the double counting, the fake editions, I've had personal first-hand experience of fake editions, book for a test, don't go, get a positive. How does that work?
Yes.
Getting tested day 1, day 3, day 5, day 7 in hospitals, all added to the big number. Well, that alone is enormous. To funeral directors having to test corpses. And then the question is, does that corpse get added to the R rate?
Yeah.
Because obviously it can't transmit to anybody else because it's a corpse. Yeah.
Right.
So it's that kind of thing. And all these things that get avoided by the government, they don't answer these questions. Then you've got the censorship. And then you think, well, we're just left with a great reset in communism then.
Yeah.
What's left?
Yeah, there is. Well, this has been going on slowly, and now it's happening quickly, gradually and all at once, as they say. So this is the erosion of society, and now we've got a crisis. And one of the great teachers from the decades past, I think, is Yuri Bezmenov, ex-KGB officer. Many of the people watching may have heard of him and seen, some of the things he talks about undermine a nation and bring in communism. You need to go through 4 stages, which is demoralization, destabilization, crisis, and then normalization. So we're now at the crisis stage. I think demoralization was happening slowly from the 60s up to perhaps 2015, where there was a slow, long march through the institutions. So people who hate Western society and our freedom and capitalism as it's supposed to be, with free competition and so on, and which is beneficial. They hate that and they want to undermine it. But then I think in the last 4 or 5 years, we've had destabilization where they've absolutely ramped up what we now, wokeness is a word that sort of people now understand what that is. And, we've seen how people have tried to undermine President Trump, undermine Brexit, even, it was a democratic decision, and ramp up the culture war, if you like. But now we're in crisis. So this is completely manufactured now, the whole COVID situation. And at the beginning, I didn't know. At the very beginning, I saw the reports coming out of China and I was worried. I did think, oh my goodness, perhaps this is a real virus. But, there was one day in last March, I think it was about March the 6th, where all of the media channels, all at the same time, started to say, this is terrible, we need to lock down. Whereas before they'd be saying, nothing to worry about. It's not even as bad as the flu. They just changed all at once on one day. And then within a couple of weeks, we got locked down. And then, as you said, you'd seen what was going to happen in January and so on. So this is, a deliberately manufactured, fabricated crisis now. And they're using it to destroy the middle classes, to destroy our freedom, and to bring in the Great Reset. They're not even they're not even hiding it anymore.
No, they're not.
Cover of Time magazine.
Exactly, they're relying on people not understanding it or not questioning it or so on. And I'll give you another example of a pandemic, and that is back in May, I said there will be a second big lockdown come September time.
Oh.
Again, not because I'm Nostradamus, because it's written down. So if you read a paragraph in the World Health Organization document, and this is almost word for word, by September 2020, there must be 2 systematic training exercises for a pandemic. Right, by September 2020. So it's actually quite easy to go, okay, September will be another big lockdown. There'll be another virus thing, it'll whatever, and it'll be September. That's why it's planned. You cannot plan a virus, but it's planned.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
there's mutations every year for flu and coronaviruses and rhinoviruses. They have mutations. They have many mutations in different parts of the world every single year. This is
yeah,
nothing normal. But we're being told these are like deadly mutants that are going to kill us. And then, you know, they bring in a new mutant. So then we have a new lockdown. It looks like this is where they're going to go. So something that is
yeah.
completely normal is now being talked up and used to continue the destruction of our society.
Completely. And there's the hint now, and in fact, it was in one of the papers, I think, yesterday, about September. It's going to go until September, which means then you can, you know, almost hang your hat on it. It will be September, more lockdowns until then. Businesses, small businesses, and some large businesses will be completely destroyed, gone forever, never come back. You know, and that's and that is when you read the Great Reset and the Fourth Industrial Revolution. That's basically what they angle at. Small businesses are not wanted. They're hard work for governments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I suppose any kind of private property as well. I mean, imagine that a lot of people, you know, won't be able to pay their mortgages, so they'll lose their houses. And, you know, at the moment, there's, you know, repossessions are being stopped and people are being, you know, blocked from being evicted. But, you know, when they change that, there's going to be an awful lot of people who lose their homes as well as their businesses, which is, it's terrible. I mean, it's like the liquidation of the kulaks without the violence almost, isn't it? Which they're destroying the middle classes, and it's evil. It's absolutely evil. But like you said, they pretty much tell you what they're going to do before they do it. I mean, they leak something, and you know, I mean, I'm looking towards personally when the elections are going to be, because I want to fight the London elections, the mayor and assembly elections. I want to get rid of Sadiq Khan because obviously he's in lockstep with Boris Johnson and Matt Hancock. You know, he's in a different party.
Yeah.
But they're all going in the same direction. I want to be the London mayor, and so we can have a mayor in London who's not going to use the police to destroy our civil liberties and close down businesses. I can say to the police, hands off, keep businesses open and stop, you know, harassing people for meeting their friends in the park, and hopefully I can make London into a free zone again. I mean, I don't know, I might rub up against Priti Patel on that, because obviously the Home Office has some say over the police as well, but I mean, that's what I would certainly advocate.
Why do you think all these people like Sadiq Khan and so on are towing the line when it comes to lockdowns? Why do you think they're not listening to expert reports to say lockdowns don't work and in fact they do more damage? Why do you think they're not listening? Is it because I can only arrive at
they're part of it. They're part of the global system. I mean, Sadiq Khan is chair of the Fabian, the deputy chair of the Fabian Society, I think. He was the deputy chair of the C40 Smart Cities Network, and which is all there to implement Agenda 2030. I mean, he goes to the World Economic Forum with George Soros. He had dinner with George Soros. That's in his public statement of gifts and hospitality. You know, so he goes, he rubs shoulders with Boris Johnson. He supports Hillary Clinton. He supports Joe Biden. So he's a fully paid up member of the globalist club, you know, the Build Back Better Agenda 2030 agenda. So there's no difference. Like I said before, there is one party in this country. It's just we have the illusion that there's different parties. The Tories, Labour, Lib Dems, Greens, SNP, they're all the same. They're all fully signed up members of the New World Order agenda.
So do you really believe, I mean, have you seen the Economic Assassin? Have you heard of these things? The Economic Assassin, which is someone who's in America, for example, someone who's employed by the CIA, goes around to governments around the world and basically almost demands they do certain things, whether it's kicking off a war or riots or something, or else. And again, I try and look at the whole picture as to why someone like Boris Johnson, Sadiq Khan, Matt Hancock, Valence, all the other people that have been involved, Whitty and all them sort of people, as human beings with families, why are they persisting? Why are they doing? What's their motivation? What's their incentive?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to know, like, if there is an economic assassin as a person. I'm sure there is, but it's something, you know, I don't know. So I imagine that there is, but I don't know all of the sort of meetings between people. But you certainly see wars kick off, which are completely unnecessary. You see governments do implement policies which are completely detrimental to their own people and their own nation, not just here, but all around the world. This is happening time and time again. And you think, this is utterly stupid. I mean, HS2, for example, I mean, they're sinking 100 billion plus into a railway line between London and Birmingham when, you know, to shave 10 minutes off the journey time and ruining all kinds of precious ancient woodland in the process. And, you know, what a waste of money, what a destruction to our countryside. I mean, that's just one example. But I think some of them, they, you know, they have something to gain because they think they'll be safe. They think they'll be part of it. They think that there will be leaders in the new system, you know, and I mean, I can't say any particular one person, but I'm sure some of them do think that they're going to be running the show. And there is, I hate to say it, but I think there are some people who are so nefarious that they do believe in the Malthusian depopulation agenda. I mean, not everyone, of course, but there's some people who do genuinely believe there's too many people in the world. It wouldn't be a bad thing if 4 billion or 5 billion or 6 billion people died, you know, because then we'll give the world back to nature and get rid of some of these useless eaters. You know, Boris Johnson wrote a piece about depopulation. I think it was in 2007. I mean, that's something that you know, I've heard and read about. So, you know, I'm not saying that that's what he wants, but you know, he's I think he certainly wrote a piece about it.
Well, I believe we're already in depopulation. That's the point, I guess, because the actions of the government can only lead you down that path. You know, and the path is lockdowns kill, and you're still locking down, and you keep repeating them. So you're killing people. Hospitals operations are cancelled. I know from organ transplants to cancer operations, as I'm sure quite a many of our listeners are aware of, those kind of people as well. You know, it kills, yet you're still doing it. So it's a form of depopulation.
I think that's the message we need to get out, because, you know, you probably, you know, you and I and many people have probably heard of Toby Young. He's done Lockdown Skeptics, very, very clever man. I mean, he wrote a piece at the beginning of the year talking about we've lost the battle, we've lost the argument because we're using reason to argue our points. They're using emotion. Oh, you know, wear a mask, stay at home, because if you don't, you're going to kill people. But we got to get that message across as well, that lockdowns kill, like you say. If people don't get their cancer treatment, it kills. If people lose their businesses, they kill themselves. No, it raises the suicide rate. That's the message that we need to get out, I think, as well as, you know, the reason, because then that's going to, you know, people are going to start realizing that actually it's not just one way.
No, there are many stories, but it's getting it out there, but the mainstream media will not print them.
No. Fortunately, fewer and fewer people are tuning into the mainstream media. I still think it's about half the people, but I think half the people just don't watch it anymore because it's so terrible, so obvious.
But then they're not watching anything. So if there's any advice to give to people, and that would be go to the alternative medias, which should actually be your mainstream media. Forget mainstream media as we know it. Forget the BBC, forget ITV, forget all the usual newspapers that you're aware of, and go to alternative media. And make the alternative your mainstream media.
Absolutely. I mean, there's Facebook groups, there's Telegram groups like your group. I mean, but I get a lot of news actually from things like the Gateway Pundit and LifeSite News. There's obviously Breitbart. I look at that still. Zero Hedge and other things, and you know, there's probably other things that people know that they can use. You know, in the States, there's Newsmax. I mean, there's sort of people are tuning into that now rather than Fox News and so on. In this country, where there's a dearth of things, what I would say, one good channel actually that's mainstream, people probably know, is Sky News Australia. Is actually pretty good.
I've seen that. And they sort of hit the mark quite quite good.
Peter Panahi and people, yeah, they do. It's
Yeah.
completely different to Sky News UK.
Yeah.
It's a strange thing, but yeah, it's good.
I heard it was like a franchise or something, so they're sort of over there. But look, we've been going almost an hour, David, and it's been
Wow.
yeah, I know, it's
Okay.
like 12 o'clock. It's mad, isn't it? That's gone so
Great. With good
How do
conversation.
people vote for you? That's what I want to know. How do they get to vote for David?
Well, I'll be standing in the London mayor election. Hopefully that'll happen on the 6th of May, but it might be delayed. I don't know, because I've heard 4 different things and they keep giving mixed messages. So they say it's going to go ahead unless they change their mind. So I don't know. You're in wisdom time. But if you live in London, please get on the electoral roll. You can vote for me in the London mayor election. I'll also be standing in the London Assembly election with the Heritage Party, so we'll be on the proportional list, and hopefully, you know, if I don't get in as mayor, you can still vote for me to go back on the Assembly with other people in the party as well. And we're also at the moment looking to select candidates around the country in the local elections, which are coming up at the same time. So we won't be standing everywhere, but we'll be standing in, you know, quite a few places, you know, Surrey and Northamptonshire and
Wales.
Wales is different. Wales has got the Welsh Assembly elections, so I'm not sure we're going to be able to stand in the Welsh Assembly at the moment, or the Scottish Parliament. We're a new party, so you know, we've got to take things you know, step at a time. So we're focused on London and England this time. But obviously, as we grow and develop, we'll stand everywhere. We hope to be able to stand in every single seat that comes up.
That's it, because Wales needs a challenger, because Drakeford is getting away with blue murder and not being challenged, and people not happy.
Yeah, I know. Look, we will if we can. We certainly will do. You know, and we're talking to other people as well. I mean, obviously, I was in UKIP back in the day, so you know, there's a couple of people who were that are now independent, and I'm still talking to them. So we'll try to make a plan for Wales, certainly, because they really do need to get rid of Mark Drakeford and his terrible crew.
Oh, definitely. Well, if you do, let me know.
Yeah, we'll do. Great.
Or should I say when you do? Yeah.
When I do, absolutely.
Yeah. No, excellent. Well, look, great to chat. It has been an hour. I'm conscious of your time as well.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on the Zoom. It's been good.
Yeah.
And
great to chat.
We'll get this all sorted and get it out there and get the message out wide and far.
Great. Yeah. Thank you very much. And if you want to know more and sign up, heritageparty.org.
Yeah, no, definitely. We'll make sure that's all tagged and plugged and everything else. We'll get all that done. And get you out there, because I'd like to see you as London mayor myself.
Thank you. Yeah.
Not only that, I'd like a friend who's the London mayor, so that my own ego will drive it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, David, and I'll see you.
Okay. See you soon. Thanks.